Hello, and you're most welcome to the latest Kara Connect webinar entitled How to Feed Hybrid Working Life, part of the 2023 National Wellbeing Day. My name is John McElligott from Kara Connect. We are a proactive solution for mental health and wellbeing. We provide wellbeing hubs for employers to give their employees access to coaching, counseling, therapy, nutrition, and other services. Our services are preventative and are focused on getting people exactly the support they need when they need it. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Denise Wogan. Welcome, Denise.
It's great to be here. Thanks, John.
Now, Denise is a registered nutritional therapist, certified intuitive eating counselor, and professional life coach, best known apparently for her love of fun, food, and people. So I've been very much looking forward to this conversation. Denise is the founder of Foodee Nutrition. She's also a licensed binge eating therapist, a certified breath coach, and also a student of counseling and psychotherapy. Denise has a particular skill around listening and allowing her clients to explore their own mind and experience in order to find solutions to their own problems. Her goals are to remove the shame people have around eating and transform them into a more positive relationship with food and their bodies. Welcome again, Denise. I absolutely love your background and profile, and I've very much been looking forward to discussing this topic with you.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it too. And sometimes when I actually hear people name out my variety of credentials and qualifications behind me, I often am so proud because I can bring such a diverse range of tools and techniques to my clients. And that is what I see people really need on the ground.
Super, super. So look, I guess it's 2023. There's never been more information available in terms of how to eat right, and people telling us in some ways how to eat better. Yet it really feels as if just about everybody struggles with figuring out how to eat well for themselves. How well do you think we're eating these days?
I think that there's lots of ways we could look at that. And my husband often says to me, why do you answer every question with another question? But there are lots of questions. There's been some recent studies done to say a particular hybrid working group in the US have studied over 2,000 employees. And they are seeing that we're exercising more, we're sleeping better, and in turn, we're eating better. And breakfast tends to be the meal that they've highlighted that we tend to eat better. On the ground or in my clinics, what I'm witnessing is that these flexible working conditions are actually allowing people to take the opportunity to lean into this kind of support. And I think what COVID has done for people is made them realize that actually they need to talk to someone. They need to air what's happening in their life with a professional so that they can see what fits into their world. We definitely know one size does not fit all. So really the advice is that different ages and different stages need different nutrition. And I really do believe that COVID has allowed people to soak in with that a bit of extra time that they had, soak in some of that information, and they're beginning to question for themselves, actually, do I just want to pay for another gym membership, or do I want to find out what's actually going to bring me real results?
Okay, well, that's certainly good to hear. So we did a LinkedIn poll and asked prospective attendees what specific questions they would like you to answer. So I have a top 10 here that we'll start to go through. So the number one was how to intelligently cook, shop, and meal prep on a weekly basis. And actually, this kind of applies to me and my family. I think we could be a lot better at that, and end up trying to figure out what to do at the last minute sometimes.
Yeah, and I think the couple of practical tips that I have are go shopping once a week. Seems simple, but the simple things are often the things we forget the most. So go shopping once a week. But before you go shopping, just like you might go to the gym and intentionally choose your weight, choose what you're going to eat and make a flexible plan. We don't need to have a rigid plan, but we do need to have an intention or a focus. So maybe Tuesday is chicken day. Maybe Wednesday is fish day. Maybe Thursday is let's all get out of the house day because we're knackered, and we'll revive ourselves so that we can cook again on Saturday when we have more energy. So the other piece with the meal plan is always put in something that you enjoy, because if you're tired, your brain is not going to want you to produce more energy to think about what you want to eat. So if you know you have foods in there that you're going to enjoy, and particularly with children, that they're going to enjoy, the task or the barriers are removed. So you will be more inclined to come home throughout that meal that you know is going to help you feel satisfied at the end.
Okay, I guess it makes a lot of sense. In some ways, it's harder or easier said than done, but it seems
Yeah,
the easy solutions can be the best.
that is the challenge.
Let's talk about ways to stop eating junk food.
Okay, so ways to stop eating junk food. I would suggest that we think about the language of junk food. So what does junk remind you of? It reminds you of rubbish. And I think when we think about rubbish, that harbors some feelings of guilt, shame, worry, I'm doing something wrong. So what's happening for you when you're reaching for the junk food? Ask the deeper questions. Am I tired? Am I bored? Am I lonely? And in that way, you can maybe engage with eating some of the junk food and truly enjoy them. And what happens is when we enjoy something and we sit with it and we eat more slowly and more mindfully, we can engage with that food. We eat less of it, but then our brain will go, actually, that didn't work for me. So what else might I like to do? Might I like to pick up the phone to my mum? Might I like to get out for a walk? So it's rather than just tackle the behavior of the eating, we're always questioning what else is going on for me.
So is that a little bit against, say, your thing about guilt? So you in the intro there, which we talked about, you're trying to move people away from guilt and shame around what they're eating. What you said there, or at least what I heard, was you saying, yeah, we should try and be a bit guiltier about eating junk food, and that will help us reduce it.
No, I must have miscommunicated there. No, it's to be okay with my question or my thoughts were, why do you feel guilty about junk food? And if we use the language that it's junk food, why use that language? Why not say, I had chocolate? Why not say, I want to have a bar of an Aero? Or why not say, I want to have crisps? Why is it labeled into a junk food? So we're taking the morality out of the food. Am I tired? And is that why I'm leaning into more of the ultra processed foods? And that's the piece that I want people to think about, what's happening in my body, rather than what we do is we label the food, and that in turn spells us to feel more guilty or feel more remorse for what we've done or give out to ourselves. And our inner critic, if anyone has done any work around their inner critic, only loves to give out to us when we don't eat perfectly. Hopefully
Okay.
that clarifies it a little bit better.
Yes, it certainly does. So let's talk about energy then, because you've mentioned people being tired quite a bit. So a lot of us spend a lot of time sitting at our desk. I think if you're working remotely a lot, you're probably very familiar with this. How do you keep high energy at work while sitting at a desk all day without drinking copious amounts of black coffee?
That's funny. That's what I have put up here is, most people that I meet are hungry and they're surviving on cups of coffee. They're skipping breakfast. Maybe there's a meeting at lunchtime and they're skipping lunch, or particularly when you're working at home and it's like, oh, I just go up and do the laundry. And next thing you're 45 minutes in and you're gobbling down your food. So what are the building blocks of energy? For me is the first biggest one is to eat enough food, to make sure that you fuel your body for the tasks that it has to do. You wouldn't ask your car to drive to Cork with half a tank full of fuel. We can get there anyway at the cost of petrol these days, but you're doing the same for your body every day. But the other one that I thought your listeners might find really interesting to think about is to breathe more. So you didn't have that in my credentials, but I'm also a breath coach. And no chia seed or no food is as powerful as oxygen, because during cellular respiration, our glucose that we have in our body from our food reacts with oxygen, creating ATP, which is energy. We need 6 times more oxygen than we do glucose to have that reaction, that chemical reaction to happen. And what we do know from modern day breathing is that we're breathing far more far more inefficiently than we used to. When we're scrolling, we're holding our breath. When we're sitting at our desk, we're holding our breath. So for anyone out there who wants to create more energy, I want you to think about doing a 4x4 breath before you eat, during eating, and after eating. And that, I've explained the science, is why you will create more energy. And it's got nothing to do with food.
Wow. Google is gonna, yeah, I know where I'm going after this discussion.
Great resource for that. There's a couple of great coaches in Ireland. Niall Breslin is one around South Dublin.
Okay, super.
Not Melbourne.
So tell me about when people restrict their eating to a relatively short period of the day, right? Intermittent fasting, right? Which really for a lot of people would mean cutting out breakfast. And you've been saying more or less for the last little while that breakfast is very important. So tell me about that, and tell me about the impact of that. Should we be doing it?
Yeah, I would ask the question, is intermittent fasting good for anyone? And intermittent fasting is around a long time. There is a large body of research showing the health benefits, things like improving biomarkers for disease, reducing oxidative stress, which is the way our body holds stress, and particularly for memory and brain function. However, that research is done on rats mostly. So the problem with something like this is that when we take it out into the mainstream and it becomes popular, it becomes a fad. And what we don't understand is who's going to interact with that. What's the person at the other side taking that information in? And generally people think, oh, I'm doing great. The weight loss is coming down. I'm feeling great in myself. And yet I see people in my clinics who have constipation, who have diarrhea, who are feeling lightheaded, who are unfocused at work. The side effects, which we know from the studies from intermittent fasting. So, and some people are taking it to extremes, and this is causing them to engage in more emotional overeating. So my question is always to look at what's your intention for doing this? And are you doing it to the extreme? And is it getting you the results? Is it worth it if you're surviving on coffee all day long and feel like crap and you can't get about your daily work? And if you're not feeling any better from it, and truly ask yourself the question, there's nothing better than true reflection to give you the honest answer. That answer that's coming deep down in your gut, I know the weight's going down, but I really feel like crap. That's your answer. Is that good for you? And what would be more beneficial, in my opinion, is to think about how your grandparents ate. They had 3 meals a day. They went about their work, but they didn't eat at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. They had periods of time where their body was allowed to rest and digest. And we go back to that energy piece. Our body needs rest and digestion in order to do that work. So if you want to give more space for your body to do that work, just stop eating at a particular time at night and do other things, fun things.
Okay. So what about if I haven't eaten and it's late at night and I'm hungry? And, there's lots of people who will kind of raid the fridge late at night. And you mentioned binge eating. Maybe you don't have to go that far, but just eating late at night. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So eating late at night, the first thing I would ask you is, are you hungry? If you haven't eaten, just like that car going to Cork, if you haven't eaten, could you give yourself the permission to eat? What happens is that people get these rules in their head, oh, it's 7 o'clock and I shouldn't be eating anymore. So what has worked for lots of my clients who find themselves waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning is actually making a conscious decision that they're going to get up and they're going to make themselves a meal late at night. So I would always question, what is your rules around eating? And what are your rules around hunger? And can you honor that hunger? Can you come home at night and say, genuinely, I'm hungry. I'm going to feed myself. I'm going to check in before, I'm going to check in during, and I'm going to check in after, and I'm going to give myself something that's substantial. Because when you go to sleep at night, that rest and digest, your body needs a little bit of energy for that. If it's got no fuel in the tank, that's where we can see the spiral of behavior go out of control the day after, because the body is waking up on the back foot. And if you're doing that for 20 years, that's a long time for your body to be catching up on.
Super. Gosh, I'm personally learning a lot here, and I'm sure our attendees are as well. Here's an interesting one, because obviously food is something we do together. It's something we do as a family or as a community. How do I stop feeling guilty about how I feed my family while working? I think this question could have a subtext of, should I feel bad about bringing the kids to McDonald's once a week?
Would it surprise you to hear that I take my children to McDonald's and KFC? Actually, no, we don't do KFC. We've recently discovered that we don't like KFC. What's the deeper question here? So I do remember a friend of mine saying to me a couple of years ago, like, what? I'm just so tired of thinking about what to feed the kids. We have an abundance of food, as you've mentioned. There's so much information out there. Why are we worrying? And what's the deeper question going on for any family? Are you worried about them getting sick? Are you worried about them gaining weight? Are you worried about them enjoying food? Is it your own confusion? Take breastfeeding, for example. I had 3 children in 3.5 years. I started off one with, you should stop feeding at 6 months, the second one, 12 months, and back to 6 months by the end. Nutrition information is changing all the time. So your guide has to be yourself. You have to be your compass. Elsie Resch, who's a dietitian in the US, who's developed a model for eating called the division of responsibility. And she has a wonderful phrase: the best way to teach a child to eat is not to try. And I want to tell you about a Mexican study that was done on children. And they were looking at how those kids embrace spicy foods. They wanted to figure out how we could get our children to embrace variety. And actually, what surprised me and my poor children, who were given chilies at a very young age, was that they don't naturally eat those kinds of foods until they're about 6. So the kids eat very plain, simple meats and some veg and plain rice. Around 6, what's happening? They're becoming more independent. They're out looking around their world. They're beginning to explore, and they become inspired by the people they see around them eating. So if you don't want your kids, if you want to stop the worry about feeding your kids, my biggest suggestion for you is to make them curious about food. Sit down at the table, talk about food. Your language is so powerful. Focus on talking about food as a positive for your body. How can your body grow, rather than you must eat that broccoli because it's healthy for it. Acknowledge every little effort that they make, even the nibbles. You get involved in marveling at the foods. A watermelon, buy something different every week, cut it open. And even if they taste a little bit off their finger, acknowledge that they've done that, but be marveling about, where did this come from, I wonder, and be curious about the food. And frame how you say it. Instead of saying, did you like that? Maybe something like cabbage. Well, how did you find the cabbage today? Would you like that made soggy, or would you like that fried in the pan with a little bit of butter? So we want to really make food as something that is enjoyable, not stressful. And actually, one tip for parents is eat like Jamie Oliver, throw everything out in the front and let them choose freely from themselves what's available, and don't stress about using the jars.
Wonderful, absolutely.
I have a lot to say on the parents.
Yes. So for those who are, I guess, living alone, or maybe sharing a house, but they're kind of cooking for themselves, how would you recommend that they manage their weekly nutrition, where they want some variety, but it can just be tricky?
Yeah, I think for people who are living alone, one of the biggest things for me is what I want to remember, that eating is not just about physical nutrition. It's about nourishment. And if you're feeding alone and you feel lonely or bored, and I do think that holds true for a lot of people, lunchtime, we were speaking about how does it work for hybrid working conditions. A lot of people tell me they don't eat a lunch because they don't fancy cooking for themselves. So when the thought comes that I'm too busy to cook for me, it's, again, we're always going that little layer deeper. What's happening for you? Have you discovered that you're just bored for eating by yourself? So the logical answer for me might be to say, go and batch cook and prep and have it all in the jars, and it's there for you when you come home. But I'm much more about how we feel. And I would say to you, could you invite friends around? Could you make a rota so that you'd have a couple of friends every Wednesday, or whatever day that's the one, that's the crunch one for you, that you would have your friend cook one week, you cook the next week. The other one is acknowledging, I'm really bored to cook, so I'm just going to grab a pizza and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch TV and I'm going to enjoy being really kind to myself in this moment, and I'm not going to give myself crap about it. If you do struggle with disordered eating or eating disorders, this is something that I would encourage you to come and have a chat with someone about. But if you don't, it's just about being present in the moment. And another thing you can do is, just like you plan going to your gym session, plan that there's going to be one evening that you're going to cook, throw on the music, have a dance around the kitchen and make it nice.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Denise, I feel we could probably talk all day. You did warn me of that at the outset.
I did.
But this has been an absolutely fascinating discussion for me, and I'm sure for our listeners as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. I believe you will be available on National Wellbeing Day, which is the 28th of April, between 12 and 1 for some short complimentary one-on-one sessions with 4 attendees. How do people apply for those?
So they can contact me on Denise at Foodee.ie. I'll have 4 slots, and my suggestion is stop after you watch this webinar, write down the first thing that caught your attention and bring that one to me. And that's the one we'll work on. We can get a lot done in 10 minutes.
Absolutely fantastic. Denise, thank you again. Thank you so much. So again, just to wrap up, my name is John McElligott. This is a recorded webinar with Denise Wogan of Foodee, Foodee, Foodie Nutrition, one of the many high caliber professionals available on the Kara Connect Employee Wellbeing platform. The webinar is part of the IBEC National Wellbeing Day 2023. And I'd also like to thank our attendees. We hope you found the conversation helpful and informative as I did. Please feel free to share the recording and any of the resources with colleagues, peers, friends, and family. And have a great day.